Good afternoon, everybody. This is our afternoon session on the B20. We are very honored here to have Ibu Shinta, who is the chair of the B20 Indonesia organization, which very successfully carried out the B20 program in Bali. And I would say that a lot of feedback from people who attended as well as people who heard about it said that the B20 was executed to perfection. It was actually one of the best held organizations. A big applause to Ibu Shinta. And I'm also proud to say that Ibu Shinta has been on the board of advisors of Indonesia Economic Forum from the beginning. Thank you, Ibu Shinta. So we're very proud of her achievements. Today, a little bit of house rules because there are some new people here for the afternoon session. This is a live studio. So what we have done is very different from what we've done all these years, because we used to be in a large hotel like Shangri-La, and we used to have 700 to 1,000 people in the audience. And what happened was, there was a disengagement for people on stage and people in the audience. You know how it is in a large room. However, as we have found from the morning, all the sessions that we've held here have been very interactive, very cozy, very in-person, lot of interaction between the participants as well as the keynote speaker. So we kind of feel that we have discovered a new thing. And this is going to be a format, a hybrid format that we're going to follow. As you can see on stage, on this TV screen is what the public is seeing. The audience is out there. We have about 570 people logged in online for the various sessions. Only speakers are in the room, and people who are contributing to the discussion are in the room. Everybody else is in virtual space. However, we have a large audience in 45 countries. We had about 8,000 people who follow Indonesia Economic Forum in 45 countries. Many of them cannot join because of the time zone difference. If you look at the US or UK or Europe, the time zone difference doesn't make it easy for them to join. Hence, everything we do is recorded, and it will be put onto edited and put onto the YouTube channel of Indonesia Economic Forum in the next few days. Every week we release 2 episodes. There are 8 episodes in total. And 30 days from now will be the promotion to get that particular episode into under the eyes of the intended audience. So every episode is promoted in a different way. If it is aimed at the business community, those programs will go to all the chambers of commerce, will go to all the associations. That's what will happen to this particular session. If it is aimed at education, it will go to the academia. And if it's digital transformation, it would go to all the startups. So that's the kind of promotion, very targeted promotion for the episodes, which will take place 2 per week, which would mean in 4 weeks, we would have done the 8 episodes promotion worldwide. And worldwide audience is mainly there because we hold our events in English. So being an English language platform is one of the assets of the Economic Forum. We are able to get the message out to a global audience, which does not mean that we don't have an audience in Indonesia. We do. We are working with Dikti, the Ministry of Education's higher education, to see how these programs can also reach universities, postgraduate students, students in business, economics, etc. And that is a new direction we are taking this year with that partnership, so that we'll be able to get the voice of the Economic Forum out into the 34 provinces, or now 38 provinces as we can count. Is it more, Ibu? I think, yeah. All right, so without much further ado, I'm very happy to announce we're going to start this program now. We have a window till 3 p.m. Ibu Shinta is here with us till 3. And this session is going to be chaired by Shoeb Kagda, who's the director of SMU for the Indonesia Jakarta office, the Jakarta Center, I would say. And we will have a format of a fireside chat with Ibu Shinta. She has a presentation to make, I believe, after which we open up the panel, the roundtable discussion to all participants. So do have your questions, your comments, your insights readily available to share. Shoeb will be the moderator. He will go around the room and make sure you get a chance to participate. Thank you very much, and enjoy the afternoon session. Thank you.
So thank you, Sachin, and welcome to this afternoon session. As you saw in our morning, it was more broad-based. In the afternoon, we are looking more on the impact on the business community. So of course, we are very privileged and happy to have Ibu Shinta here. She's one of the most well-known businesswoman in Indonesia. She's with Kadin. She's a vice chairman of Kadin, and of course, she was the chair of the B20. So, Ibu, I think we have a room full of entrepreneurs and business leaders, and really we want to know, the impact of the B20 deliberations, the outcomes. How would they impact the business community? What do you think would be the key takeaways that the business community should really be focusing on over the next, few years? And in your view, what are some of the key challenges facing the business community? I know you have a presentation, so maybe we can start with that.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Shoeb, and thank you, Sachin. I think the Indonesia Economic Forum has played a very important role. You've been, how many years? This is already the 9th year, amazing, and I think I'm most parted since quite a number of years. So very proud the fact that it's still running despite all the, crisis, pandemic, and everything. You've been through everything. So thank you for this opportunity. I want to just share a little bit my mood today, because actually I just came out from a meeting, a very difficult meeting. So as you know, the hype of the G20, B20 was very, very successful. It makes us proud to be part of Indonesia, as an Indonesian, being able to deliver, really, finally have a leader's declaration and have a successful summit in Bali. I think all eyes are Indonesia. I think if you look at the international media, everybody's signaling very positive of Indonesia. But I just came back from, because after all the rah-rah, all congratulations, celebration, and then we have to come back and then face with now the issue of the minimum wage, because our minister has just issued a regulation that is really against all the, against on the law that has been established and the president's decree that has been issued. So it's been quite a tough days. After we came back from Bali, we have to face this and fight again within, internally. So I just thought it's good, to share with you the start. Sometimes it's like this. After the rah-rah of, putting Indonesia in the map, bringing investors to Indonesia, and then we have internal issues like this, that I said, oh my gosh, all the hard work, how much time we have put in for this, and now you come up with something like this, will give a completely negative image of Indonesia, because legal certainty is number one. Why would investor comes in if there's no legal certainty? So I wanted to share with you this, because sometimes, I know there's always politics behind everything, but, we need to understand that all the hard work that we're doing for Indonesia, we need to keep it up. And this consistency is number one. And if there are signaling things like this, it will really jeopardize what we have worked for. So I just thought this is interesting. So my mood right now is like, it's been like quite a fighting mood, but anyway. So let me start by sharing a presentation on about B20. I know many of you perhaps are already familiar. I've been talking about this for the last year, but it will be good to just have an understanding of what we're doing, and I think focusing on the outcome, especially, how will this impact business, what are we moving forward from this. So let me start by giving you a little bit background. So next slide, I think we'll just go. Okay. So this is the B20 pose, I think, a strategic role for the shaping of the global recovery. When we actually, B20 is the business engagement group of the G20, and we've been meeting since 2010 in Seoul. So every year there is a B20, and the goal of the B20 is policy recommendation to be submitted to the government. Now, the last 2 years, Saudi and Italy, because of the pandemic, they've been having a lot of more virtual than physical. But this all what's happening now, of course, with the post-pandemic, with the COVID, and also the looming global economic downturn that we're facing, of course, we have to say it, of course, the Ukraine and Russia conflict is part of it, and food and energy security is, a lot of the issues and challenges that we face that has been very much driven in all the discussion of the B20, and we are focusing on the 3 items, which is the global health architecture, digital transformation, and energy transition. So when we talk about G20 and B20, these are the topic. What makes Indonesia interesting is, from the beginning, we've been working together with the government in terms of aligning the issues. And this is quite different, actually, with past presidency, because sometimes they each go their own way. The government do their own, business their own. But for Indonesia presidency, from the beginning, we go through the issues, and these are the 3 focus issues that presidency putting forward. And the second thing is the fact that we are also an emerging economy. If you look at the G20 and the B20 as well, all the agenda are mainly driven by the developed countries, and that's very apparent if you look at all the policy that comes out from it. So this is the first time Indonesia, the emerging economy, start putting issues like MSMEs and things like that perhaps was not very much in highlight issue for the for the developed countries. So I think this is also an opportunity for Indonesia to lead off the G20 and the B20. Next. So who are we? So in the B20, we have 6 task forces and 1 action councils. And we have the trade and investment, energy sustainability and climate, finance infrastructure, integrity and compliance, future of work and education, digitalization. And of course, we have the Women in Business Action Council, and we have the International Advocacy Caucus. So all the chairs, so I'm the B20 chairs, but we have chair on TOS, Farses are all Indonesian top CEOs, but the co-chairs are all from the B20 countries, and we have also prominent figures also sits in our ISC, including Mr. Elon Musk, Mr. Tony Blair, Mr. Michael Bloomberg, all the big guys, they're there, and I think it's good for the image of Indonesia also to bring all these big CEOs and global leaders in place. So I think what powers us is clear that we have the global industry participation. We have in the task forces itself, we have 1,200 working since January, believe it or not. This is the biggest ever inception meeting January. So this is not just about the summit. People always think, oh my God, Shinta, congratulations, summit. Summit is just like a week program in Bali, but it is a whole year of work. So I kind of put actually, I'm like taking almost sabbatical because I didn't realize when I took up the job, it's just almost a full-time job for me. But anyway, we have 1,215 sectors, 15 industries background, and also 34% is women. And I'm very, very proud that we have the highest, woman ever in the B20 Indonesia. So slide before, I wanted to okay, so this is what powers us. I think we have the commitment on the industrial leaders. We have also the government support. We have the diversity. I think diversity, I just mentioned, is very important. But what our aim is are the 3 aspects that has been our theme, which is the driving innovation on technology, digitalization, and so forth, but also empowering inclusive economy. And this is very, very important because I think we want to bring not just the MSME women, but all the vulnerable groups. And of course, fostering a collaboration because we really feel that the gap between the developed and developing countries needs to be addressed. And this is the first time when you sit in those meetings, you can feel that we, the developing countries, are very outspoken because we lead it. So the agenda, we can drive the agenda. A lot of the issues are coming out from the previous presidency, but this time we bring in a lot of the new agenda, and therefore we have a lot of breakthrough policies. So how we do it, we have the policy recommendations. We have also this year a legacy programs that I will share later. And we have, one thing that our government was telling us is that yes, this is good, we have to follow the process, you can come up with policies, but make sure that Indonesia will get something out of this, which is what? Which is the investment. So my KPI is we would not be successful unless we can also drive more investment coming to Indonesia, which is, I will share with you later as well. And we have the global dialogue. We've been traveling to I travel this year 16 countries, believe it or not, 16 countries. So very proud, 16 countries doing my roadshow. And then, of course, we have a lot of business matchmaking. Now, the result, if you look at the next slide, these are the numbers. So we have over 350 meetings since January, and we have also what we call the side events. So this year, instead of just the main task forces meeting, the advocacy meetings, we also have side events which we work with many organizations. So this is part of the result. But the main thing is, yes, we have 25 policy recommendations and 68 policy action. And while until last minute, there were a lot of rumors saying that the government may not be able to get its leaders' declaration, and in all the ministerial high-level meetings, they were not able to get a joint statement. In the business, we're proud to say that we are able to reach a consensus. And this is very difficult because obviously companies from countries like China, very outspoken, very specific. So to come up with a consensus takes a lot of effort. But we did have a communique. We were able to issue a communique, and this is very, very important. And our communique is submitted to the leaders. And you can see later how much our community play in the Leaders' Declaration. Because to me, yes, we can come up with any pieces of document, but unless that's included and that will be part of the implementation on what we're going to do, there's no point of doing all this, right? Okay, so next. These are just the summit. I'm proud to say 3,000 more people attended the summit, and I think also the biggest ever B20 summit. And we have over 3,000 from 69 countries, and over 100 speakers coming from 30 countries. So very diverse, besides the big speakers we have, but it's more also the diversity that's very, very important. So we have state leaders, we have global business leader, everybody speaking in the summit as well. Next. So these are the 3 breakthrough policy recommendations, and it's emphasizing the 3 areas that I was talking about, which is innovation, inclusive, and collaboration. So, and each of these, we are promoting innovation, of course, post-crisis, inclusive MSME and vulnerable groups, and also collaboration between developing countries. And under this, I can share with you also some of the policy recommendations that becomes the breakthrough for Indonesia presidency. Next. So this is on innovation. What are some of the breakthrough policy? So why I want to highlight this, I know a lot of you perhaps are not familiar with the process of the B20, but B20 every year have policy recommendations. So what I told the team is, what I wanted to see is what can we present this year that makes us different, that we can have these breakthrough policies. So this is what, in the innovation side, we are advancing digitalization in bridging the digital divide. So I think the equality and it was a very important policy that we bring forward, how to bridge the digital divide, and this includes, of course, the infrastructure and so forth. And also promoting broader access on innovative financing. What I'm also pleased to share is that this year we have a number of innovative financing, including blended finance, specifically when we talk about the green investment. And we actually have fun in place, and that's something that also I'm proud of, because a lot of time we just come up with ideas, we come up with recommendations, but where's the money, right? So I said to my team, especially in the finance and infrastructure task force, which is led by Ina. I said, we need to see the money coming out of the B20. Actually, there's a fund there, I said, and I don't want this to be just government fund, It need to be business fund that's available there that we can claim, yes, this is the outcome. So we do have fund that comes out from the B20. And on the third is the digital innovation, which are people-centered. I think we'll talk about the skills, future skills. This is also something that in the policy that we very much specify. Next, and on the MSME, we are also talking about specific policy on the inclusion of women, especially women-led businesses, but also on the sustainable business practices for MSME. I think when we talk about a lot about sustainable practices, we forgot that MSME is a group which is majority of many of the businesses needs to be paid attention in what kind of support we can give to them in terms of their sustainable business practices, and also promoting women in the workplace. We talk about a lot about how to have a safe and secure workplace, promoting gender equality in the workplace. So there's specific recommendation also coming out of this. Not because I'm a woman and leading the B20, but I think somehow the women, a lot of the women issues are also being part of what we are highlighting in many of the task forces. Next. And on the collaboration, I think I'm sure you hear a lot about green and just transition. So this is when we talk about of course, the push toward an energy transition is there, right? The coal retirement and so forth. But we also need to understand how to make it just and affordable. So this is something that we are driving from the emerging economy side. What specific just a transition model that works? The advanced nation wanted a commitment, of course, on the net zero, yes, but where is the climate financing? Where is the commitment on the $100 billion? Where is it, right? So I think put the commitment on the table. I think this is where also when we talk about the financing side, but also on the just transition, we also need to look at the people, impacted to the people when we talk about the energy transition. So many of the specific policy related to green and just transition. And also we talk about technology and many aspects. And also we talk about the cooperation, especially on the healthcare, on the future shock in the global economy, especially the emergency healthcare preparedness. So a specific policy that we are submitting in terms of how we have learned from the pandemic and what government needs to put in place on the emergency preparedness. And of course, interoperability to more safer and more robust global cooperation. Next. So these are some of the overall, I just want to share with you that almost more than 80% of all our policy has been included in the Leaders' Declaration. And I think this is very important because, like I said, the B20 give to the leaders, but the leaders have to include our policy in their Leaders' Declaration. This is key. For me, this is my KPI, because if I'm not able to deliver this, then, it's no point for us to come up with the communique. Next. So this is also, I wanted to give you an example on what specific things that, I don't know whether you can read it, but this, I just give you example on what the policy area that we have and how is that impact in terms of the leader, where exactly in the Leaders' Declaration, so that you have an idea on, which specific example on our communique, where we are and where is it implied in the Leaders' Declaration. So let me give you an example on this. First of all, let me see. On the trade and investment, first on the digitalization. I think that's it. Okay, so we have the ensure access to high-speed capacity on digital infrastructure, including digital inclusion and support private efforts. So that's specific language in the policy action, and then that's the relevant G20 statement in the Leaders' Declaration. So here they also say increase connectivity by accelerating high capacity and secure infrastructure. So I just want to give you an example, specific things that come out from our community that has been adopted into the Leaders' Declaration. The same thing with the trade and investment for access to finance and create regulatory environment to enable investor and lending institution to support female entrepreneurs. That's also being put in the Leaders' Declaration, point number 28, regarding financial inclusion framework. So these are I'm just giving you an idea on how specific things has been adopted in the Leaders' Declaration. But what's important also this year is that in each of the policy recommendation and policy action, we have put a KPI monitoring, because what I told the group is that we don't want also the policy to stop here. We want to ensure that the policy will be implemented, right? So that's why we have a KPI monitoring system. So when next year we go to India, we will continue seeing on what has worked, right? How we monitor each of the policy that we come up forward with. So we have a KPI, and we also have an SDG aligning each of the policy recommendations. So each policy recommendations and the policy have an SDG component, SDG number 1, number 3, whatever. So each of the policies also aligning with the SDG. Next. So these are just some of examples so that you have an idea on what each of the policy is aligning to the Leaders' Declaration. Next. Now, what also makes it different this year is what we have legacy programs, because our government specified that the president specifically said that he wanted a concrete and actionable result. And thus we have legacy programs that is related to the 3 areas of focus. So first, this legacy program has to targeted intervention to address the select global challenges, also to tangible and implementation of output, clear ownership of PIC who's going to drive that, because it's not going to be stopping at Indonesia presidency, but it will go beyond to India, to South Africa, to Brazil, South Africa. They're all emerging economy. The next 3 after Indonesia is all emerging economies. And of course, this has to be a scalable solution that will for all that relates to all countries. So the legacy cannot be just for Indonesia. The legacy is about the B20 legacy. And next, let me share with you specific legacies. So we have the first called the Carbon Center of Excellence, which we have a knowledge hub and a practice hub. And we, on this, we work together with the project owner is the Bloomberg. So Michael actually endorsed this project. So what we do in each of the legacy, besides Indonesia initiative, we want to have an international component and some champions from the B20 leaders. So in this case, Michael championed this, and we are promoting this Carbon Center of Excellence, working together also with Bloomberg. So the platform is also carried through by Bloomberg. And this particular Carbon Center specifically will discuss about the carbon market mechanism, talk about the carbon trading and so forth. So this is a breakthrough also in the trade and investment policy when we start talking about carbon market initiatives. And next, on the second thing, these are some of the companies that are joining. So when we submit this to the government with our communique, this is actually already implemented. So in other words, we don't want to just be as an initiative, but companies are actually already doing this and already committed in actually, not just commitment, but actually already doing these projects. So these are just some of the companies that are already doing it. Next. We also have what we call the One Global Women Empowerment, and this specifically address the women-led businesses, and this is the first time that we have an integrated platform, which the key objective is to excite the digital capability, the knowledge sharing, the funding and investment. So we have a women pool fund that is also launched during this funding and investment component, and we have the technical support and supporting policy included regulations that are required policies by countries, governments to basically support this One Global Women program. And we crowdsource, we crowdfund, we create, clarify, and we communicate, of course. And this will have a permanent secretariat, and the permanent secretariat with the International Organization of Employers. So this is something also that is many companies, big companies, are doing things on their own, but for the first time, we're bringing, if you look at the next slide, we have over 30 companies from all over the world that are joining this to work together. So the big companies are also mobilizing resources for the women-led businesses through different women organizations. And I think this is also exciting to see that actually many companies are collaborating and working together on this issue. Next, we also have the Wiki program, and this is for the scaling up of the MSME. Like I mentioned, this is the first time that we are putting MSME in our priority, and we call Wikilin, the online knowledge and information platform for MSME products and services. We also have the Wiki Do, which is the offline and online digital operations, and we have the Wiki Skill, which is more the B2B matchmaking portal. So we're bringing the MSME to the buyers, and also bringing MSME as part of the global supply chain of the big companies. And we have what we call the inclusive closed-loop ecosystem, in which the big companies are also working on not just the product supply chain, but also on the financing and many of the aspects. We have the digital use case of Metaverse Library that we work with Telkom to support this effort. And one of the projects that we're doing is specifically in collaboration with JETRO. So for those who are MSME who wants to export to Japan, we have specific program that with JETRO that will enable them to also find buyers and so forth. Next. So these are the companies that have been supporting, and this is also already ongoing. Next. The Global One Shot campaign, this is related to healthcare. As you know, the G20 has come up with the new fund for the healthcare, and we are supporting that effort through the Global Health Architecture Reform. And this particular One Shot campaign is supporting in terms of the vaccination production hub, as well as the research and development, working between B20 companies. So we have actually already specific deals on the table, and this will support also the outcome from the G20. Next. These are the companies. This is just some companies. So on the companies, more are coming in, but these are the current one that we are already working with. So the initiator in this is also Tony Blair. So Tony Blair is working with us on this particular effort. Next. Okay. So finally, I don't want to bore you too long, but this is actually the most important thing for Indonesia, which is the investment that we're able to come out throughout the B20 process. So the number right now sitting here is $13 billion US. So we're able to reach, this is just from the B20. We're not talking about the G20 and many others. This specifically that has been facilitated by the B20. So we have over $13 billion, and we also have the first EV fund launch, which of $2 billion. That is also the outcome of the B20. And if you look at the sectors, this is very interesting because I think somehow the renewable energy sector, especially on the green sector, are very much quite a significant part of what we are bringing in. But besides that, of course, we have still the old traditional manufacturing, we have infrastructure, and many other things. But I think it's interesting to see that actually Indonesia now become also an attractive place to bring in many of the what we call the green investment. And I think this is something that when we go and do our roadshow, we work together with the Ministry of Investment in creating some of the projects. And during the summit, we also have an investment B20 summit. We also have the Net Zero Summit for the first time. And it really shows Indonesia leadership that we've always been considered as a country that's behind, especially when we talk about green investment and net zero. And I think we are able to really show that we do have a lot of potential projects that we'll be bringing forward to the B20. So these are just outcome that I would like to share today. Of course, many things happening throughout the B20 process, but these are some of the highlight I think that important to share on what we're doing to the business. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ibu Shinta, for that very succinct but I think very insightful presentation on the achievements of the B20 committee. And I would say that really the numbers speak for themselves. $13 billion is a good achievement. I will just open the questions to the floor. Pak Darmono, welcome to IEF. Thank you again for gracing this occasion. Maybe I can just start with you as one of our trigger speakers. You have long experience and achievements in business too. From your perspective, Pak, how important was the G20, more the B20 to the Indonesian business community?
Thank you, Shoeb. I think the report from Ibu Shinta clearly presented how successful the conference was in Bali, and this gave a tremendous support to Indonesian prestige. So, like the economies also mentioned about now, Indonesia matters again. So this is something, if I talk it from the point of view of promotion, this has been a very good promotion for Indonesia. So the rest is about how then we follow up this situation and how we can collaborate for more investment to come. So the basic situation has not changed. Indonesia has always huge potential. Of course, the potential can only be exploited or to be attacked when we realize what are the obstacles of doing business in Indonesia. Now the fact is that Indonesia, with 17,000 islands from one end to another end, is 7 hours flight. It's not easy for foreign investors to understand how to do business in Indonesia. So partnership is very important. And I think Ibu Shinta explained a lot of things about what are the opportunities in Indonesia. Also, a lot of partners can be found. The fact is that we have also special economic zones which help people to invest much easier. And from the business prospect, always the perception coming to Indonesia is certainty of law, security, and conveniences. And these three things can all be found in special economic zones. So a special economic zone is an area where it is like giant shopping malls. When it is in a shopping mall, you found all those three things: certainty of law, security, and conveniences. So we have now a lot of special economic zones. My company itself, we have 3 special economic zones, and the first one in near Jakarta is approved by itself. For the last 33 years, there have been more than 34 countries invested in our industrial estate. More than 2,000 factories came, and we created over 1 million jobs with GDP of $35 billion per year. So this is just a typical example that if you do it right, first together possibly come in a consortium to invest in Indonesia that way, then you unleash the potential. Now take about supply and demand. In Indonesia, we have 12 million backlog in housing. So 12 million houses, apartments, if you just say it is $50,000 per apartment, we are talking about 50,000 times 12 million, which is $6 billion alone on the housing sector per year, which, sorry, not for 12 million backlog. Now with the growth of people, like 3 million per year, you see that the backlog will never be able to be overcome. And the raw materials are basically available in the country. So the basic material to be supplied will create other industries, also a lot of SMEs, and creating jobs and so on. So Indonesian government, as Ibu Sita mentioned, was very much is about creating employment, transfer of technology, and how to utilize our idle asset without wrecking it. How to keep the environment green, and we maintain the environment as such that it's contribute to the green strategy. So that's in Indonesia, basically with 514 residencies, 34 provinces. There are so many things to be done. But we just have to remember that we have many governments, central government, provincial government, then regional governments, plus the village chief and so on. So it's important to understand this basic principle. First, of course, we have to survey whether in that particular area we want to invest, the people are ready, the mayor is welcoming. And then you see what are the natural resources in those areas. And then, of course, the next thing is how we can have the right regulation, the right incentive to invest in that area. And the law about the special economies is about that solution. How investors will feel at home, feeling convenient when they come to invest in our area. So in the special economic zone, it's like just if you're going to a hotel, you are going to a shopping mall. It's no different to Singapore shopping mall, Japan shopping mall, hotels everywhere. So this special economic zone is where I suggest if investors come to Indonesia, should focus on this one, because it's really can help to reduce a lot of unnecessary costs, mistakes to be made, and so on. So I'll stop that one and listen to what is the other comment from another speaker.
Okay, thank you, Darmono. Are there any other observations or comments on what you saw the B20 achievements? How do you think it would impact Indonesia, or at least your own sector, or your own business community? Yes, Poonam.
Yeah, thank you, Ibu Shinta. That was a wonderful presentation and very positive indeed. And what really, made me sit up and take notice was your numbers on the women inclusion, 34%, and that's wonderful. It's actually taken it really up there, and there's only one way to go now, even further up. So that's great. The other thing that I noticed was that in your last slide, where you had $13 billion investment in projects, health only was 6%. So why is that so?
I think investment is driven by the projects, right? What are for projects that's available. So I think in the healthcare sector, the number of projects that are also available are also much less. So we can't look at it on the percentage of the result, but also how much are being offered, right? So the most are in the renewable energy sector, they're the biggest. But healthcare, we have some, but not significant. So that's why the numbers doesn't show equal, in terms of, because it also depends on the projects. There's some, like Darmono also mentioned about special economic zone. Most of the manufacturing, of course, is in the special economic zone on the investment side. But I think what's, this is just the beginning. To me, this whole B20 is just a trigger, right? I mean, I think Indonesia needs to use this as the momentum, but we need to go much, much more, one beyond than this, right? We are just giving a glimpse of Indonesia opportunity, but there are actually many things that we need, we can still do. The point is always goes back is there's still appetite out there for investors, but they want to see, can we actually be successful investing in Indonesia, right? And this is why Darmono mentioned about challenges. We need to be very, very careful in terms of how this, our internal reform itself will impact the investors. I mean, when we talk about the omnibus, that's why I've been very much promoting the omnibus. It's the biggest structural reform. We're actually cutting all regulation, licenses, and so forth, and having a one single submission system, or SS, because now licensing, everything is under one digital from. But we know that in actuality, the implementation is still not very optimum, right? There's still a lot of problems. So I said to my government, while we are promoting this, and Pak Darmono clearly, reiterate, yes, it's a good promotion for Indonesia. We put Indonesia to the map. We need to do our homework here, because if not, all this effort will not, it will be gone. I mean, next year, there will be, with the crisis looming and everything. I mean, we need to really get our act together. And one thing that I learned about this whole process is also the Indonesia Incorporated. For the first time, government, business, we will go hand in hand. We said, okay, we want to make this work, so we work together on this. But the Indonesia Incorporated has to last, right? And it cannot stop just because we have a successful G20 and B20, right? It has to go move on. And this is why it's very, very important that I think our leader recognized that. While we have, Indonesia has been lucky, we have seen the numbers, our fundamental economic is still very strong, but everybody's saying the perfect storm is coming next year. And we know businesses are ready now. We are terminating like almost, in the shoe association, I just had a meeting, 40% already down in terms of, so orders are down, These are facts on the ground that we have to face. So while we are this beautiful lady out there and in the media, darling, everybody talks so positive of Indonesia, we know there's definitely homework. And we are competing, guys. Indonesia doesn't stand alone, we are competing. And this pie now becomes smaller, and we have to compete to get that pie. So this is why I said my government, here, Indonesia Incorporated, remember that, and we have to continue with that.
Great answer. Yes, Nalin and then Patrick.
Ibu Shinta, congratulations on the B20. It's really remarkable to bring so many people from diverse backgrounds and get any kind of outcome. Most of us can't get that result in our companies with 5 or 10 people. Looking at the statistics, when this brilliant set of people sat together and made recommendations, and then the leadership accepted them, I saw that you have a success rate of more than 80%, which is outstanding. But just out of curiosity, what are the reasons they would have for not accepting a recommendation by a brilliant set of minds? Say on integrity, it was 81%. What kind of suggestion on integrity would leaders typically say, no, this won't work for us?
Maybe I need to be clear. The percentage is what's adopted to the leaders' declaration. So this is all up to the leaders. It's not up to us. The consensus that we reach is basically 100%. That's coming from the B20. So why is leaders are not adopting the 20%? I don't think there's ever I think we are one of the highest adoption because we are from the beginning already aligning. There's never been 100% adoption to begin with. And usually it's much, much less. So basically, I think Indonesia is already doing a good job by bringing in, aligning is really much there. And I think we have to, in our government to, because when adopting is not about Indonesia, it has to be adopted by all the countries, right? So that means we have, when we talk about alignment, that's why we have a lot of advocacy with the government. It's not just about Indonesian government, because we have to convince other government to want to adopt it. So I think the number is actually very high already there. But if you look at some of the issues on the consensus issue that happened at the B20, there's many. Like, for example, integrity and compliance, we talk about ESG standard. That was a big part of it, Mainly, I said many of the issues that comes out are more a gap between developed and developing countries, companies, I feel, And even the definition of developing countries was something that was quite a sensitive need to keep on brought forward. The carbon trading issue was also a big one, because I think this is again got to do more readiness. But so those are some consensus issue I cannot share with the closed door. But basically, there are some consensus issue within the B20 itself. But what's adapted to the leaders are mainly, basically what's not adopted are perhaps certain things that we for them was not something that is a priority. So the number of almost above 80 is already very, very high, because those are the issues that are adopted by the G20.
Thank you. Patrick?
Congrats, Ibu. Congrats, Ibu. I think that was fascinating what we heard and what we saw. And I've been in Indonesia for a while, and I'm super excited by the journey Indonesia is on now, especially after the G20 and what has been done over the last few years. You came in this afternoon, mentioning where your mind was at compared to how you felt after this morning's meeting. So in this situation we are in, where the perfect storm is coming, how do we avoid taking 3 steps forward and then going 2 steps back with situations which you talked about that happened this morning, right? Does it just take political will, but also business leaders to help that? And what do you suggest goes on next?
Yeah, I think we have to understand that we are coming on the political year. I don't know whether you will have a discussion on politics in this forum.
We can start now.
This is a political year, right? It's going to come out to a political year, 2024. So I think I would say sometimes I'm okay, maybe coming out with policies that's not correct or what we call against the legal side. It's more because it's a political decision, and political got to do, of course, with the people, right? These are when we talk about minimum wage, is something that labor wants. So it's always the aspect but between politics and what's right economically. I think this is something also that we need to understand. When you live in Indonesia for so long, you can see that in the next 2 years before election, there will a lot be policies like this. And because we have long enough seen this, we know it's coming. But what we are doing is what we can say is that we cannot stay quiet. Right? When things like this, that's why we're fighting right now. We're going to do the judicial review for this particular regulation that the manpower come up with on the minimum wage. We have to do judicial review, no choice, right? So the business has to put a context that, do you believe if you come up with this is not just legally incorrect, but it will really impact the job absorption, because there will be less people that will be able to get jobs with this kind of policy. So it's the social impact is actually very big, but sometimes they don't see that. They don't know how much, the numbers out there. I just had an argument, this is just an example, with the Minister of Manpower. They said, how come our numbers are not the same like your number? Because their number are just based on their entity report, yang itu apa namanya, from the manpower, after all the things they just report at the end. Of course, the number is much smaller than the actual what's happening on the ground. But I said to the business people, we need to get this number right. So this is why our number are getting from each of the companies and all the associations. So our numbers is definitely there. How many people are already terminated? Not just terminated, but contract that are not extended. That's basically termination. So since these things like this data also play an important role, sometimes our government doesn't see it that way. And this is why we have to convince. And we'll continue fighting. And sometimes we are the bad guys, whatever it is. That's why a lot of the business people say, okay, we'll just behind you, you just, association, you just talk, and then go behind. And then, sometimes they're questioning, Kadin now become I said to my colleague as well, I think this is why we are here. If we continue looking it on the political side, it will impact us because economically it's very, very clear how hard this is going to be. So I think coming out with a wrong policy will be detrimental to what's going to happen. That's already going to be a very difficult situation. And we are fighting for incentive and things like that, but we have to be realistic also what the government can give, right? So I think, again, I feel why I keep on saying the Indonesian incorporated side, because at the end of the day, we want to ensure at least the demand flow is there. And demand is still very much domestic, yeah? I mean, we have export, yes, there's international demand. But we have to understand, unless the government is coming out with the domestic demand and helping the domestic demand, is also not going to, it's going to be very challenging for us.
Thank you. So basically, after all the razzmatazz, the hard work starts now. Any other questions? Yes, Sunit, and then...
So thank you, Ibu Shinta, for taking us this journey of B20 since January. I mean, our teams were involved, so I know a lot of hard work has gone and outcome is impressive. So my question is around the monitoring of all the policies and the actions. Yeah, there were 25 policies and 68 policy recommendations. What is the mechanism in place at the government level as well as at the business level, so we can really see some fruits out of all this hard work of the last 1 year? Thank you.
So we've decided on the B20, we will come up. So Kadin is actually the main organization for the B20. So we will have basically a task force that will continue on. And will also, when the task force will be established in the next presidency, which is India, they will continue with the KPI and target, because the target is coming. So this is why there is a continuation, because a lot of the people in the task force will continue on with India. So the KPI will remain there in the Indian presidency. So it will not be stopping. And then from there, we can monitor and see where are we? Are we making improvement already with some of the KPI that we are putting there? So this has to be working together also with following the next presidency and the next and the next. And we can't stop if we want to make sure that this happen. But I think again, despite of people always look at the G20 is really over-promising and under-deliver. Basically, I think this is really also the challenge that is motivating us. This is why if you see in most of my presentation, it's more about actions than about just talking about the policy. We have 400 pages of communique that we submit to our government, each of very specific policy recommendation action. But this year is about action. So I said, what's the real outcome? What's next? What's there? Because I think that can show the difference than just policy that you can only see the impact maybe, I don't know when, how small into many of the policy of many government that sometimes we cannot even see, right? But on actions, it's clearly there. When we have the fund will be invested in, we can clearly see there. This is why we have been promoting very much on these legacy projects and actions.
Okay, thank you, Baba.
Okay, thank you, Ibu Shinta, for the information. You mentioned that one of the important KPIs is that to attract the foreign direct investment, right? Why don't we think the other way around, like fostering the internal capital formation capabilities? Because I think the biggest source of the FDI around the world is coming from the USD, US dollar, right? And
Sorry, coming from where?
from the US, and I think they are also doing the what they call as the continuously quantitative easing, or keep printing the money and building around the world, from the thin air, something like that. So why don't the country like Indonesia also following the same strategy? As long as the spending of the printing money is using for the productive sectors, like the green sustainable development activities, developing the agriculture and food industries, the manufacturing industries, and also maybe for the special economic zones development, I think it would not be inflationary effect, but it is going to have the positive impact for the nation like Indonesia. That's the first question. And the second question is, do you think, considering that the digital transformation initiative around the world is about the right time for the country like Indonesia to introduce its own digital currencies? Yeah. What do you think about that? Thank you.
Wow. I think this question should be an open discussion.
Discussion.
Yeah.
Well, Ibu Shinta has a good point. Maybe somebody else may want to talk about. The first question actually is quite interesting. Should Indonesia be printing money? And how should we be distributing that fund, right?
Tom Lambong is there.
Yeah. Pak Tom. Or maybe Pak Darmono. Would it work? Pak Tom first.
Hi, everyone. Good to be back in person, even though I understand we're also being live streamed. So the question was, what? Should we print money?
Yeah, should we print money and boost the local domestic consumption and investment and capital creation?
Well, it certainly worked during the pandemic, right? To almost everyone's surprise, what they call direct monetary financing, which is the central bank essentially directly monetizing and directly purchasing from the Ministry of Finance tens of billions of dollars of government bonds. That worked extremely well. Yeah. But I don't think it would work now and going forward because, during the pandemic, we were falling off a cliff. Like there was tremendous deflationary risk, right? And all the central banks around the world were cutting interest rates and printing money. So if our central bank joins in, we're just part of a consensus, right? But I think today we're running, historically high inflation. Interest rates are going up. If anything, central banks are withdrawing liquidity, doing the opposite of printing money. They're actually unloading their bonds and taking all the liquidity back, right? Unprinting money, if you will, right? So if we continued with monetary expansion, I think we would be very much against the trend, and that cannot possibly have a good outcome. So, sorry, that avenue of solution, unfortunately, is probably close to us now. So.
Yeah, thank you very much. Pak Darmono?
Yeah, well, I think the normal thinking is that printing money will create inflation. But if we see how US keep printing money and can overcome the inflation for so many years, because people have confidence in US. So if the country gives confidence, actually you can print money. Now, take China. China, in the early 80s, printed two monies, renminbi and yuan. Renminbi was for domestic need. So everything which is produced locally, this can be covered with the renminbi. Of course, later on, they abolished that one when the country became strong and people have confidence. So it's just one currency. Indonesia, we actually need to print more money. But how to print money without creating inflation? So coming back to special economic zones, if we just regard Singapore as Indonesian special economic zone, see what happens. Singapore is very strong. In 1950, one Singapore dollar was 1 rupiah. So this just to prove that if we can create special economic zone like Singapore, then we can print money in that area. Maybe we don't call it money. We can change it to like in the casino with chips, right? But this is the opportunity for investors from overseas to build a special economic zone on their own, which I have proved it in Central Java. Shoeb, you know this. We joined with Sembcorp from Singapore. We have 51%, and Singapore has got 49%. But I let them run the special economic zone. And what happened now? It becomes G2G, and so many investors came within a short time. It was a very successful project because it's run by Singaporean management. 51% belong to Indonesian, but it creates confidence. If we are allowed to print money in Kendal, I think it would be okay, actually.
We can use Kendal money, Pak. Kendal money. And Shoeb now is already in SMU, right?
Yeah.
So you can see
we can talk about a special currency.
Yeah, but Darmono, you should issue cryptocurrency. You should issue a Jababeka token.
Yeah, Jababeka token. I think.
You want to become the investor, Ibu Shinta?
Yeah, I think at the end of the... Yeah, I think basically from Ibu Shinta's presentation and the discussion we've had, the key takeaway really is that it is no longer business as usual. Even though we've had a very successful B20 and G20, the challenges are still ahead of us. We need to think outside of the box. We need to think creatively. And I think the partnership between government and business, especially going forward, is going to be very critical. And I think the political winds will blow very strong next year. So I think we should be bracing for those winds. But while we fight it, Shinta, is that correct? Okay, we're going to end now, but we have a short presentation by Jim Castle on he's recorded a video for us for this session.
Yeah, so I'll just introduce that. I spoke to Jim. Because of the time zone, he is not able to come on. He's in Washington, D.C. right now, so he consented to give us some remarks. The whole video is about 12 minutes, but I'm going to play only the first 4 minutes because we will send you the video. A part of all the collateral that we have, I will send you the full link of the video. You'll be able to watch that. The other interesting thing is Jim has also given me another video, which is a complete analysis of the political situation coming forward. We are not presenting it here at the IEF, but we will put it on our YouTube channel. And he's given a good 10-15 minute complete analysis of how he sees the political year play out and what would be its impact on the business sector as well as the bilateral implications when we are dealing with other partner countries. So that will also be put onto YouTube. We will have it on Friday. So could I ask you to play the B20 video of Jim, and we'll play the first 4 minutes. We are really grateful for your time. Thank you for logging in from the US, from Washington, D.C.
Well, hello, Sachin, and hello, everyone, all the participants. I'm sorry I can't be with you in person, but it's great to be part of the Indonesian Executive Forum, and so I'm very happy to have this opportunity to share a few thoughts with you. And as Sachin indicated, obviously, you can't talk about Indonesia today without talking about the G20.
Do you believe that the G20 has given an overall much bigger exposure to Indonesia, and in terms of now putting Indonesia on the center stage? How do you see that whole thing play out?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. As I think I said in my opening remarks, the media, the global media exposure has been fantastic, and to have the conference go well, and to have people curious about Indonesia, and at a time Indonesia is doing quite well economically, I think it's just been a tremendous plus. And I think we can build on that. I think I wasn't, of course, at the G20 or B20 meetings in Bali, but a lot of my friends were, and the mood at the B20 meetings was fantastic. Kata did a wonderful job. The local chamber, the foreign chambers of commerce did a wonderful job. AmCham, EuroCham, AusCham. They did really, I got a lot of positive feedback. And so I think there'll be some very good things to come out of this. And certainly the exposure has been tremendously positive. And so all credit, of course, the president, but all his staff did a remarkable job.
About how you see the Indonesian.
We'll cut that video there because we run out of time. Ibu Shinta has to leave. But after this video, Jim also gives a complete breakdown on where the economy is right now and where it's heading. Typical of Jim's program, which is the Indonesia country program, where every 6 months he gives a very good analysis. And what he talked to me about last night, was actually just presented at the Johns Hopkins University a day before that. So 2 days ago, he made that analysis for the Johns Hopkins University. So I think it's very interesting how he's put it together. I'll share the link with all of you. It'll be on our YouTube channel. Okay, thank you. Back to you, Shoeb.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And please join me in thanking, giving a warm round of applause, Ibu Shinta.